Imagine going to bed after a long and exhausting day, closing your eyes, and wondering if your brain could continue learning English while the rest of your body rests. It sounds almost impossible, but sleep is far more active than many people realize. When you fall asleep, your brain does not simply switch off. Instead, it continues working quietly, processing experiences, organizing memories, and strengthening information you encountered during the day. This is why the idea of learning English through sleep has fascinated language learners for many years. Many people are busy with work, school, family, and daily responsibilities, so they dream of finding extra time to improve their English. When they hear that English audio can be played while they sleep, the idea immediately sounds attractive. You could imagine listening to vocabulary, conversations, or stories at night and waking up with stronger English in the morning. But before believing every promise on the internet, it is important to understand what sleep can actually do for learning. The concept of sleep learning became popular decades ago, when researchers and enthusiasts experimented with playing recorded words and sentences to sleeping people. The hope was that the sleeping brain could absorb completely new information without conscious effort. Some people believed that languages, facts, and even habits could be placed directly into the mind during sleep. Over time, however, scientists discovered that the reality was much more complicated. Sleep is not a magical classroom where your brain absorbs everything it hears. Your sleeping brain behaves differently from your waking brain, and it has limits. Yet that does not mean sleep is useless for English learning. In fact, sleep may play an extremely important supporting role. Think about what happens when you study a few English words during the day. At first, those words may feel unfamiliar and weak in your memory. You may understand them while reading, but forget them several hours later. After a good night's sleep, however, you may suddenly remember them more easily. That is because sleep helps your brain organize and strengthen memories. Instead of imagining sleep as a teacher giving you a brand new lesson, imagine it as a quiet assistant helping your brain store what you have already learned. This distinction is extremely important. If you have never heard a particular English word before, simply playing that word while you are deeply asleep is unlikely to make you fluent in it. But if you studied the word earlier, understood its meaning, heard it in a sentence, and then encountered it again during rest, your brain may be better prepared to remember it. This means your daytime learning and nighttime rest can work together. During the day, you actively learn. You read, listen, write, and speak. At night, your brain gets an opportunity to process and consolidate some of that information. So the real opportunity is not learning English without studying. It is using sleep to support the learning you have already started. This approach is especially useful for learners who feel that they forget everything after studying. Perhaps you learn 10 new words in the afternoon and remember only 3 the next morning. Instead of becoming frustrated, you can improve your routine by reviewing those words before bed and then getting enough quality sleep. You might listen to a short story you already studied, repeat several useful phrases, or quietly review a few important expressions. The goal is not to overload your brain with hours of difficult material. The goal is to give your mind a calm and familiar reminder before it enters its nightly cycle of memory processing. And that leads to an important lesson. Sometimes better learning does not mean studying longer. It means studying more intelligently and giving your brain enough time to recover. If you want your English to improve, do not look for magic shortcuts. Build a simple system where learning happens while you are awake and memory gets the support it needs while you sleep. Your night cannot replace your effort, but it can become a valuable part of your learning journey. Now that we understand that sleep cannot magically teach you an entire language, let's look at what happens inside your brain when you sleep and why this matters for English learners. During the night, your brain moves through different stages of sleep, and each stage plays a different role in keeping your body and mind healthy. While you are sleeping, your brain is processing information from the day, sorting through experiences, and strengthening some memories while allowing others to become less important. This process is one reason why studying before sleep can sometimes be useful. Imagine that your brain is like a librarian working after the library has closed. During the day, you bring books into the building. At night, the librarian quietly decides where those books should go so they can be found later. In the same way, the information you encounter during the day becomes material for your brain to organize during sleep. For an English learner, this can be valuable because language involves remembering thousands of words, expressions, sounds, and sentence patterns. You may hear a phrase in the morning and barely remember it by evening, but after reviewing it and sleeping well, the same phrase may feel much more familiar the next day. This is why repetition is so important. Instead of trying to memorize hundreds of words in one night, choose a small number of useful expressions and meet them repeatedly throughout the day. For example, you might learn phrases such as "I'm looking forward to it." "Could you explain that again?" Or "I'm not sure what you mean." First, read them, then listen to them. After that, say them aloud and try using them in simple situations. Before going to bed, review them one more time. Now your brain has several connections to the same information instead of one weak encounter. If you later hear those phrases during sleep, they are not completely unfamiliar sounds. Your brain has already encountered them while awake, which makes the nighttime audio more like a reminder than a new lesson. This is where many online claims about sleep learning become misleading. Some videos suggest that you can play complicated English lessons all night and wake up speaking fluently. That promise sounds exciting, but it creates unrealistic expectations. Real language development requires active participation. You need to understand meaning, notice how sentences are formed, listen carefully, speak with your own voice, and make mistakes that teach you what to improve. Sleep cannot replace those activities. However, sleep can support them by helping your brain process what you practiced. Another important factor is emotion. You are more likely to remember something when it has meaning or creates a strong feeling. A boring list of isolated vocabulary may disappear quickly, while a word connected to a funny story, personal experience, or interesting conversation may stay in your memory longer. That is why simple English stories can be especially useful before bedtime. Instead of memorizing disconnected words such as river, window, journey, and decision, you can encounter them naturally inside a short story. Your brain then has context to connect with the words. You understand not only what they mean, but also how they behave inside sentences. This makes language feel more natural. Another useful approach is to keep your nighttime review short. You do not need to spend an entire hour actively studying immediately before sleeping. 10 or 15 calm minutes may be enough for a simple review. Read a short passage, listen to something familiar, repeat a few sentences, and then allow yourself to relax. Your goal is not to force your brain to memorize everything before you close your eyes. Your goal is to give it useful material and then give it enough rest to process that material. You should also protect the quality of your sleep. If your English audio is so loud, complicated, or distracting that it keeps waking you up, it defeats the purpose. Sleep is essential for learning, so sacrificing good sleep just to keep an audio track playing all night is not a smart strategy. A peaceful bedroom, a comfortable routine, and sufficient rest may be more valuable than hours of continuous listening. Think of nighttime English as a gentle extension of your daytime routine, not a replacement for it. Your real progress still comes from what you actively do while awake, while sleep gives your brain the opportunity to organize and strengthen some of that work. Once you understand this, the idea becomes much more realistic and much more useful. You are not searching for magic anymore. You are building a learning system where your effort during the day and your recovery during the night support each other. Now you can turn this idea into a simple routine that fits naturally into your life. You do not need expensive programs, complicated equipment, or a perfect schedule. What matters most is consistency. Start during the day by choosing a small piece of English that you genuinely want to understand. It could be a short story, a simple conversation, or a few useful phrases. Listen carefully while you are awake and make sure you understand the basic meaning. Repeat the important sentences aloud and try to use them yourself. If you learn 5 useful expressions today, that is enough. You do not need 50. Give those 5 expressions time to become familiar. Later in the evening, return to the same material. Read it again, listen to it again, and notice anything that you missed earlier. You can even record your own voice saying the sentences and listen back to yourself. This creates another connection between the sound and the meaning. Then, shortly before bed, review the same material one final time. Keep the atmosphere relaxed. You are not preparing for an exam. You are simply reminding your brain that this information matters. If you want to experiment with nighttime audio, use material that you have already studied while awake. Keep the volume comfortable and avoid anything that interrupts your sleep. A short timer can be useful because you do not need English audio playing continuously until morning. The most important thing is still getting good quality sleep. You should never treat sleep as wasted time or try to sacrifice it for additional study hours. A tired brain will not learn efficiently simply because you forced more information into your schedule. Another mistake is changing your material every night. If you listen to a completely different story, vocabulary list, or lesson each evening, your brain gets less opportunity to become deeply familiar with any one set of language patterns. Instead, repeat the same short material for several days. You may become bored with it at first, but repetition is exactly what makes familiar phrases easier to recognize and eventually easier to produce. Eventually, you may hear a sentence and realize that you understand it without translating every individual word. That is an important step toward natural English. However, never forget that speaking requires speaking. If your goal is fluency, you must eventually use the language with your own voice. After listening to a sentence, pause and repeat it. Ask yourself simple questions and answer them in English. Describe what you are doing. Tell a short story about your day. Even if your sentences are imperfect, practice matters because language becomes useful when you can produce it, not merely recognize it. Sleep can support your memory, but it cannot move your mouth for you. It cannot replace conversation, reading, writing, or active listening. Think of your English journey as a garden. During the day, you plant the seeds through study and practice. In the evening, you water them through review. During sleep, your brain has time to work with what you have already planted. You may not notice dramatic changes overnight, but small improvements can accumulate. A word that once felt unfamiliar becomes recognizable. A sentence that once seemed difficult becomes easier. A conversation that once made you nervous becomes slightly more comfortable. These small changes are real progress. So do not chase promises that tell you English can enter your mind effortlessly while you sleep. Instead, use the truth to your advantage. Learn actively when you are awake, review calmly before bed, protect your sleep, and allow your brain time to process what you have practiced. If nighttime English helps you relax and review familiar material, make it part of your routine. If it disturbs your sleep, turn it off and simply focus on getting proper rest. There is no single method that works perfectly for every learner. What matters is finding a sustainable routine that you can continue. Remember that becoming good at English is not about one magical night. It is about hundreds of ordinary days when you choose to listen, speak, read, review, rest, and try again. Your brain does not need pressure every minute of the day. It needs useful practice, meaningful repetition, and enough recovery. Tonight, when you close your eyes, remember that your learning journey does not have to stop completely. The work you did today can continue to settle into your memory while you rest. Tomorrow, you can wake up and begin again with a little more familiarity, a little more confidence, and a few more words ready to use. Sleep may not teach you an entire language by itself, but when combined with consistent daytime practice, it can become a quiet partner in your journey toward better English.